Longer than Xfinity Series races at this circuit, the Integrity OCTANE Series is in for something special, a challenge at the track too tough to tame. In race number 25 on the OCTANE Series calendar, the Tuesday night tour continues the playoff picture, but of course, it's a track we saw a week ago in the Monday night series, the Ignite Series. It's Darlington Raceway. Tonight, it's not 148 laps that are going to be on display, but instead 184, the longest trip we've ever had to Darlington in this league's history, as the championship race, the next level, Chase for the Cup, continues in the second race of the round of 15. 5 drivers are due to go home after our next race at the Charlotte Roval, but before we get to that point, of course, first we have to decide who comes out of victory lane here at the Lady in Black. Welcome back to the South Carolina 240 coverage live on FTN Broadcasting. I'll be your host for tonight's event, David Kreutz, commentating and producing. Currently 2 minutes remain on the timing charts with Cody Smith up to the pole position. Then you got Jacob Fife in second. Third place is Brad Patton, and fourth, Nicholas Ward. Still, some top drivers have yet to take time so far, notably including Michael Araya, Nick Tarbuck, and Ethan Lane, all of which right now are going for their first laps in the final 90 seconds of this session. Araya going to be making it down the back straightaway as it stands. Ross Cato just took the pole, but there's a very good opportunity here for the 44 to maybe strike back immediately after. Ethan Lane also in a similar position as the number 54 comes across the stripe. The big three, all of which are now going to be coming together and looking for a chance to take the top 3 positions in qualifying. Ethan Lane, of course, having himself 11 wins this season, the first non-big 3 driver to win all throughout the season. Well, it was Blake Cannon, and only the second was last week in Don Stevenson. So the big 3 now looking for the opportunity to make things happen and do it all over again when it matters most. Ethan Lane, a lap time 29.129, immediately up to the pole position by a 10.5. Michael Araya up to third in his first lap, and now looking to make some strides on this second and last. Down the back straightaway here, it's that number 44 of Michael Araya. Nick Tarbuck is going to settle for fourth. Araya now coming across the straight. It looks like he's still got a little bit left in him as he comes across the line. One last loop, and Michael Araya, 29.384, not able to improve on that second lap, as was Ethan Lane not able to as well. Both of which could not make it happen. Cody Smith going to be now in the 6th position, and it looks like Tom Wetmore gets up to position number 8 in the final 3 seconds of qualifying. Wetmore sets the last time, Ethan Lane with the fast time. It's a 29.129, which scores the number 54, the pole position from Darlington. So, 5 last minutes of practice here. Track conditions are going to be fluctuating today. Not going to be a constant sunset state. We are going to have a day-to-night race perhaps play out, but hopefully it doesn't get all too late here in Darlington. Very rarely do we see those nighttime stadium lights come out. Hoping to see some of that natural sun at least carry us through the first 100-plus laps, although might be looking toward a transition race as the event progresses. So with that being said, taking a look across the front straightaway and back, drivers are taking their first loop in this 5-minute session, and we have a little bit of time until, of course, those drivers are getting fully into their 5-minute runs. So let's take a look at your starting grid for tonight's event, and from top to bottom, show you who's who and exactly where they are. First and foremost, it's going to be the number 54 of Ethan Lane, 29.129, putting him in first, with Ross Cato then second, and Michael Araya in third. Gap between first and second nearly full 0.2 of a second, which would be the gap between second and 10th, mind you. That's how far ahead Ethan Lane is on one lap, 29.129 versus a 3.12. First and second, Lane and Ross Cato. Third place, Michael Araya. And fourth, Sam Nieto. The 29.329 Nieto has another strong qualifying run, putting him up against and ahead the last of the big 3, Nick Tarbuck. It's going to be first, third, fifth for the big 3 drivers in the championship. You got Cody Smith then in 6th, and Jacob Fife 7th, with Tom Wetmore position number 8. And Brad Patton 9th. Don Stevenson concludes the top 10. Our defending winner Stevenson is after what was a thriller last week. Now from there on back, we got Nicholas Ward in position number 11 and Ryan Farrell in 12th. Now it looks like with these two drivers just ahead of Bobby Ross and Galen Gidman, you have only two additional drivers who set a time. 15th place of Kyle Cooper and that number 73, and Alan Rawell, 29.7. Gap between 11th and 16th, 2 seconds as well. So overall, it's going to be across 16 time-taking drivers, a gap of some 0.5 of a second. You got Brian McFerrin in 17th in that 07 machine, and Randy Fiash, the 18th and last driver on tonight's starting grid. 54 of Ethan Lane takes the pole position in a field of 18 drivers and 9 full rows. That is your starting grid for the South Carolina 240. So taking a look downstairs after we go through your starting grid, not one of the largest ones that we've seen this season, and that's going to mean this race is going to play out most likely in an interesting fashion in which maybe we will not go caution-free, but there's a very high likelihood that we get 150 plus laps consecutively in green flag standing. Little opportunity for drivers to really bash into each other unless they do so intentionally. There's going to be a lot of room for every driver on the track today, and that's something that we've seen before at Darlington, even the Ignite Series where we do often have 25, 30 drivers coming through. There's usually just enough room for everyone on the track to sort of mingle around without causing much trouble. We went to, of course, Darlington last week in the Ignite Series for 148 laps, and in that event, we only saw one caution in the first 25 laps. Rest of the race, 120 plus laps, ran under green. So yes, there is a very high likelihood that we see strategy of that nature come back into play. Don't doubt it for a second. These drivers are likely going to be aiming for a long-term race with the way things are looking. Brad Patton once again taking a qualifying lap. And in doing so, he's going to bring that new mentality into the playoffs where he does not have to start at the back of the field. Tonight, he wouldn't lose all too much track position, maybe starting in the 17th spot. However, it looks like he's going to gain at least 10 spots just off of taking one good lap. Brad's going to find himself in 9th tonight, and getting up to the front of the field is going to be a little bit easier now that he has himself at the middle of the pack rather than the tail end. It's definitely a plus side of having that qualifying lap at your disposal. Only two drivers choosing not to make use of it tonight, and none of which right now going to be on the circuit, neither a Brian McFerrin nor a Randy Fiash. So qualifying, of course, that gives you somewhat of an advantage already, and looks like right now when it comes to speed, Tom Wetmore has the edge in last practice. He's got a quick time by 44 1,000ths of a second. And it looks like that's the way we'll stand. 8th place in qualifying, fastest in last practice. Tom Wetmore with a quick time, 29.175, which would have been good for second in qualifying. That's going to be what Tom puts down as the fastest in this session. And Wetmore now going to head down and into the inside of the track. Major wreck. And now the track clears. 184 laps going to be ahead of us here in Darlington tonight. iRacing pace car already going to be loaded in, and with the starting grid now back in formation again, let's take a good look now at the field as it stands. Ethan Lane again has the pole position. Now, I would say that he is the race favorite, and I'm not basing that off of the qualifying results entirely. Yes, that matters, but additionally, given the nature of this race, based on our predictions, we are not expecting to see more than 3 cautions today. And if Ethan Lane, as he's done all season long, continues to be the master of this long-term strategy, you're going to see him get away from the field no matter what comes in his way. Oftentimes, tires and fuel, when those are the most important thing in a race and not working with the other drivers, that's when Ethan Lane shines. He has had, admittedly, a sort of checkers or wreckers pattern this season. However, in the last few races, that has tapered off, even if he hasn't gotten himself consecutive wins. 11 already in the bank for Lane. And then you got Michael Araya, who's starting behind him in 3rd, and of course, Nick Tarbuck, position number 5. Both of which, right there, Of course, right now you can see them making their way off, all with multiple wins apiece. And now in Darlington, a track that for Nick Tarbuck, he's been to many a time before, as recent as last week. Well, he finds himself now with a chance to do it all over again. Michael Araya, more the same in that number 44, the Sim Speed Shop Chevrolet. Well, he's looking for win number 8 as Ethan Lane has stretched the all-time win advantage up to 12 in total. Araya still looking for a chance at what could be double digits on the season and maybe a championship as a rookie. Let's talk about conditions here in Darlington, South Carolina. The 1.33 mile circuit is our host tonight, and we are looking at what could be a day-to-night transition race. Air temperature right now is going to be coming in a very mild 78 degrees Fahrenheit, 82 degrees on the track, so a little bit warmer, and a relative humidity of 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds are going to be northbound at about 4 miles an hour here at this egg-shaped circuit, so they won't play all too much into account, and drivers should be able to maintain speeds. However, tire degradation might change the way they go through the corners within the first 50 laps. Keep note of that as the iRacing official pace car has let go. It'll be Ethan Lane and Ross Cato, your front row for tonight's race. To kick things off, the 54 gets the jump on the bottom side, and he'll lead Ross Cato into the opening turns, leaving the rest of the field in the dust. Ethan Lane brings us to green in Darlington. Ethan Lane going to lead this opening lap, and he's got Michael Araya right on his tail. Nick Tarbuck going to maintain in 5th. However, already Araya to the back bumper of your race leader, and we're looking at a battle between the 54 and the 44 all over again. Now it's going to be Ethan Lane making it through those first 2 corners, and as you can see, the field is entirely single file from first on back. The only difference now would be the battle for the lead, in which Michael Araya is going to go down low and take it out of turn 3 and 4. Now it's going to be Araya, your race leader, and Ethan Lane backing off just a bit. And I'm thinking that's going to be a strategic call here for Lane. If Michael Araya wants the lead, give it up, let him have it, and let's see how far he can run with it. And the 54 of Lane going to do exactly that and hang back, waiting for Michael Araya to maybe come right back down to earth. Michael now going to have that 0.3 of a second advantage as we look through the back straightaway all over again, and the rest of the field has gotten going. Alan Rawell just went down to pit road. However, it appears he did so on his own volition and signaled in and let the drivers know exactly what was going on. He's 1 lap down already, and while he did start the race with us, it looks like he's no longer going to be on the track, at least temporarily. Hopefully, Alan's got a little bit more left, but it looks like that number 69 crew has decided to pack it up early and perhaps get ready for our next race. 5 laps in out of 184, and so it begins. You got Brad Patton now looking on Jacob Fife and going to the inside. This is the battle now for the 7th spot if you can get up to Tom Wetmore. Of course, first and foremost, it's the fight for 8th, and Tom Wetmore's just going to be looking on from his rearview mirror. Now you also have Nick Tarbuck coming on board, and he's looking to get by the number 51 because Wetmore just got through him. Looks like Tom now trying to get away from the lower half of the field, instead make those quick early moves to make up big position rather than having to worry about it in the long term. Get a little bit more aggressive now and just reap the benefits of making passes while it matters most. Cody Smith going to be 5th and Sam Nieto 4th, and maybe for Tom Wetmore, those are the next targets up. However, Wetmore was slower than every driver ahead of him, including Sam Nieto that time by, so we'll see whether or not this next lap is an indicator that Tom's really got it, or maybe he will have to settle down and maybe have to evaluate instead the drivers behind and continue to defend all the same. Brad Patton up top, Jacob Fife down low. They'll be side by side now coming to lap number 8. Fife going to get by, and Brad Patton going to have to settle down again. He's got himself further on back in 9th once more. Tom Wetmore getting oh so close to the back end now of Sam Nieto. This will be the battle for the 5th position. And now the number 2 going to be just on the high side, Nick Tarbuck right there with, and it's going to be 3 wide briefly. Nick Tarbuck going to split the middle, and one driver has to give. It'll be Jacob Fife. He will back down just a little bit further, and he will let the number 18 of Cody Smith get by, as does Tom Wetmore. And then you got Sam Nieto there. The 7th spot is now his. Going to be a bit of a shuffle up right now, and Sam overall -3 on the day to this point. You got Brad Patton in 8th and Jacob Fife in 9th, and 10th place is going to be Don Stevenson. Nicholas Ward is just outside the confines and the cutoff for the top 10. Look a little bit further ahead, and you got Nick Tarbuck here now working on Tom Wetmore. 3rd place amidst all of this as a driver that we have not met in this race so far. Ross Cato, yes, of course, he started inside the front row, but at the same time, I think now that Ross is going to find himself up and ahead, and he's gotten away from that second pack, here, he's in a good spot to maybe progress further with a little bit more assistance from that draft. Ross is looking for that 2nd career victory, which is a number that Don Stevenson hit last week, able to get the job done after waiting for a win after his first trip to the Charlotte Roval. Stevenson, at long last, made his way back to victory lane in what has taken him nearly 365 days. And of course, last week when we went racing to kick off the playoffs, it was in Atlanta for 167 laps. Super speedway style racing never is that predictable, and Don Stevenson made sure that he was the top driver when all was said and done, even if he wasn't the most contentious driver. Now, if you take a look back to where Stevenson is battling, it is still very contentious, and positions are being debated lap after lap. You'll see Sam Nieto again going to get by Jacob Fife. Although this is now for 8th, Sam continued to fall down a little bit further. The Pro Powder and Paint Chevrolet going to be in 9th, Don Stevenson 10th, Nicholas Ward in 11th. A little bit further on back, you'll see the battle between Ryan Farrell and Kyle Cooper working off the straightaway. Cooper gets a little bit loose, and Ryan Farrell will continue to stay just ahead. It's 14th and 15th right now they're going at it for, and the 93 of Ryan does have the advantage. Galen Gidman not getting the best of starts and still going to be mired way back, 14th to 13th, up 1 spot so far as he goes down that Boeing back straightaway, and yet it looks like there's really little help for him as he finds himself behind Bobby Ross and the main pack of drivers, and Galen Gibbon just going to have to hang on here and wait for something to turn his way. Maybe it'll be strategy, maybe it will also come down to a yellow flag, which is still on the cards even if we started in such a calm manner. Nick Tarbuck, Brad Patton, Tom Wetmore. Take a look in the back end of the 51 now, and you'll see while Wetmore made the moves early, he's got the pressure coming back. Nick Tarbuck now going to be lunging out of these final 2 corners and maybe looking to make a charge, but that's the thing about Darlington and momentum. If you find it, very hard to keep it even throughout one set of corner. These drivers have to understand their car is set up to take 4 corners solidly, not being perfect through any set. This is an iRacing fixed setup, which means drivers are not able to customize or tweak the way they go throughout the corners. It all comes down to their ability behind the wheel here. So the best drivers working the best setup, well, you have to take out that setup variable. It is all about the wheelman tonight. And so far, well, yes, Ethan Lane has been the best of which. He let Michael Araya go through, and it looks like, again, the 54 is leading. But if we're talking about this gaggle of drivers who have been closer so far, this is where differences in driving style make all the difference. And this is really when it comes down to style, because these drivers are always very evenly matched in pace. You could say Michael Araya, Ethan Lane, Nick Tarbuck have been the class of the field overall, but this is where it comes down to drivers who are in that second tier. Clearly championship contenders, yes, but we would say that based on the success of that big three, they are the dark horses, the underdogs, and they might not be the likeliest to come out there and win the title, but they definitely still have some race-winning pace in them from time to time, and most often, each and every week, have a chance for a top 5 here, like Wetmore or Nick Tarbuck, of course, right there. He's got Brad Patton right behind him, or Sam Nieto, Jacob Fife even, and Don Stevenson, of course, who won just a day ago. Nevertheless, 18 laps in out of 184 and coming to 19 already. It's getting a little bit trickier now for drivers like Don Stevenson to make it back up to Ethan Lane. Lane right now is going to lead, and he's got himself ahead by a half a second over Michael Laraya. Ross Cato is going to be in third. Cody Smith is in fourth. Tom Wetmore fifth, and Nick Tarbuck occupies the sixth place, and they're going to be separate now by 3.6 over the opening portion of this event, where we're already getting settled in and trying to decide upon a fuel strategy and even what's left of tire. Now, when it comes to fuel tonight, we are expecting to see a 3-stop strategy in the cards, or rather 3 stints, 2 pit stops. It could go the way of 3 pit stops, of course, if we are to have drivers come in at about 45 laps, the first margin. Then we have coming in at 95 to 100 again, and then that last pit stop from around lap 140 to 145. But preferable for drivers tonight is if they go about 60 or so laps, give or take, on their first stint, and then go to lap 120 on their second, and then they can go all the way from there. That seems to be the way they want to go about it, but at the same time, that all comes down to whether or not they're well enough equipped to go for full-on saving. Alan Rawell looks to be disconnected once again with internet troubles, so 18 laps down. He's still trying to race, it appears, and just reconnected again. Hopefully we'll see a little bit more of Alan right now. As you see, battles have simmered down entirely. Gap between Kyle Cooper and Galen Gidman, a quarter of a second to this point. Galen running a little bit higher in these corners relative to a driver like Kyle Cooper, and that's what we mean by the driving style differences. Maybe you get a little bit of a better run off of turns 1 and 2. Maybe you have yourself partial to turns 3 and 4. The approach you take will impact your speed more than anything else. These setups being evenly matched and this track being very narrow when it comes to racing room means the way you approach things is everything on the racetrack tonight. Jacob Fife right now going to keep himself right behind Brad Patton, company they've been for a while now, and it looks like Jacob Fife once again making some room to get back into the picture. Gap between them shrunk by about 5/100ths of a second that time by Jacob Fife's favor, and it looks like right now, as he's due to come across the line again, he is directly in the tow and working down the front straight. 31.2 for Jacob Fife there. Brad Patton was quicker by a tenth, so it's a toss and turn, and it looks like this time around Brad Patton came through with the minor edge. Can't quite say the same for Jacob Fife here. He'll have to pull it back together, and looks like that he does with a nice exit out of turn 2, while Brad Patton, unstable and loose, sliding right by Jacob Fife up to P7. And a rare mistake there, a rare obvious mistake for the number 7 of Brad Patton gives way. And so now Brad's going to find himself in 8th, maybe pressure once again for Nieto to conquer if he can get up there and have to focus first on Don Stevenson. Don's coming up on the number 2, and very close they both were to hitting the wall, coming through turns 1 and 2 again. Now down the bowling back straightaway, it's going to be Don Stevenson in 10th, and the number 2 is Sam Nieto in 9th. And you might notice, first and foremost, these two drivers are running the exact same windshield banner, Real Sim Racing, in their Cup Series, which races very prominently all throughout the iRacing world, managed predominantly by Evan Pasoko of NASCAR fame. And these two drivers, beyond the Integrity Racing League, have ran against one another week after week for years now. And that's one of the things that might change the way you drive against someone else. And sometimes we don't mention that because many a time these drivers are committed solely to the Integrity Racing League. But for those who are not, you might see some very familiar faces. We remember Vinny Tigner coming in from the Ignite Series, and he had Alec Daffin as well. Brad Patton now is deciding to dive down low, and that's going to bring the number 7 in, down down a pit road. It looks like for him, he's going to go in tow immediately here. So Patton deciding to bring it in quick and disconnect, it appears. Brad Patton's day going to conclude rather quickly. You might remember a very similar instance at the Integrity Ignite race at Darlington, and Patton going to throw up the towel fast and bring himself down a pit road, running in 17th now. All the while, Ethan Lane is going to lead, and that's going to give every other driver a bonus spot, moving Jacob Fife firmly up into 7th. 8th is Sam Nieto, etc., as all drivers now get that extra one up. So very minor shift in the order there. 28 laps in, Adam 184, coming more or less to the halfway point of your first pit cycle tonight. And that's what it's all broken down by. When we go down a pit road, the sun is continuing to set here in Darlington. The drivers getting amped up for that first time down a pit road, which may be make or break for a chance to win. Fife around Tarbuck casually makes the pass, and that's good for 6th place. Not a bad job at all by Jacob Fife, as he'll make his way now, rounding through 1 and 2 with another position taken. And now the goal, of course, is to get up in the top 5, which is presently occupied last by Cody Smith. So the back half of the top 10, separate more or less now by 2.5 seconds. But from 6th down to 9th, the gap is only 0.8 of a second overall. There's a difference, a clear one, between the drivers from 3rd to 9th and then 10th on back. And of course, those top 2, Michael Araya and Ethan Lane, have gotten fully away. Here comes Sam Nieto to the inside on the number 4 of Nick Tarbuck. And it looks like Nick up high, struggling early and not really making all too much up on his qualifying run. Oftentimes we see Tarbuck, have a little bit more trouble in qualifying and then come back together a little bit later in the race. Maybe a long-term driver more than anything else. And of course, we're saying that he's in jeopardy right now, 30 laps in, when there's still 150 or so laps to go. And that's about the length of the Integrity Ignite Series race we just had at this track. So no doubt Nick Tarbuck knows how to race here. He's done it before, and he will eventually do it again if he sticks with us here in the Integrity Racing League. But most importantly for him now, it's finding that plan, because he is slipping down the order, and if this is something he can control, well, there isn't as much a worry to go with it. But at the same time, you do not want to let that habit progress. It's not much a habit. It's more so the trouble of not understanding exactly what to do when you're uncontrollably losing positions. Now he's just got to hold off Don Stevenson, trying to hang on here to the single digits, although it looks like Don might be trying to make that move for 8th. Stevenson goes to the bottom, and therewith, it's going to be a quick move by the driver of the number 47, as he's going to try to take it. Doesn't quite work out. He'll have to settle in once again right behind. Keep in mind, Nick Tarbuck, who we're watching here and now, he finished in 3rd in that race at Darlington in the Ignite Series. Was able to come home 3rd place, 6 seconds back on eventual winner Braxton DeWeese. Michael Stroll came in 2nd, and of the drivers here today who ran the double, well, you'll see first and foremost, Nick Tarbuck was able to finish in 3rd. Cody Smith was able to finish in 5th, as he is running right now. Then from there, you got drivers, of course, Brad Patton, who finished in 11th. He's not with us any longer on the circuit. Jacob Fife was taking a last place provisional. He was not in that race, and right now runs in 6th. So the only additional driver, Kyle Cooper, of note, he finished in 21st, and right now he's running in 14th. So all across the field, there's a little bit of correlation between those who did well in the Ignite Series and have come here to the Octane Series and vice versa, but it's also harder to tell because this package is significantly different, and maybe the way that you approach it, one car is completely different than the other. Now, both of which, of course, are stock cars, and yes, it is the exact same circuit, but this is where differences arise between packages, and you cannot continue to rely on the exact same information to do a completely different race. And that's just something that becomes common knowledge. But at Darlington, such a track which is tricky and oftentimes unseen multiple times in the schedule, it becomes harder and harder to practice if you do not have that repetition, that experience beforehand, and it comes in a racing setting more than anything else. Don Stevenson looks low, can't quite find the room. He's looked multiple times now to take that spot, but hasn't quite found the position to really make it settle in. The number 47 of Stevenson now works across the final corner, and he's going to be in 9th to Nick Tarbuck's 8th. These two drivers have been landlocked for about 5 or 6 laps at the very minimum, and the more laps to tick down, it looks like the more they become isolated. They've gotten away from Ryan Farrell, who is 1 second back. However, it looks like Ryan is still going to try to claw back in to take a few spots of his own. And for the meantime, though, Ryan Farrell is out of the picture, as is Sam Nieto. Nieto right now going to be chasing after Jacob Fife, and it looks like these two might go side by side first if Sam Nieto, of course, can have his way and continue that assault on the number 36. Let's go back here to Tarbuck and Stevenson. Nick right now going to be running in 8th, and Don Stevenson is in 9th. Notice a very similar entry for the both of them through turns 1 and 2. And it looks like right now, consistency is indeed key. Don't want to deviate all too much from the way that the drivers around you go at it. And so now, seeing very similar laps being put up by the number 4 and 47 respectively, not only in speed and time, but also in their placement on the track. And so coming across the line, that might be the reason, the principal reason, of course, that that number 47 of Stevenson can't generate a run. Right now, the focus might not be on getting a good run. It might just be on waiting for a mistake and hoping it comes at the right place and right time. For now, Don Stevenson continues to look, and as he looks under, there still is not yet enough room. Tarbuck will head through turns 3 and 4, hanging on to position. Now you'll see 3 drivers getting bundled up. That's going to be Cody Smith, Jacob Fife, and lastly, it's going to be that number 2. Hell, that's going to be Sam Nieto here. Sam going to be going a little bit lower than Jacob Fife through turns 1 and 2, and you can see Jacob going to bring that defensive maneuver up to the ceiling of the circuit, and as he takes it all the way up to those striped safer barrier walls, doesn't look like it's going to quite work out here, because it's the number 2 of Sam Nieto who puts it side by side. 2 by 2 here as they come out of turns 3 and 4, and I think while Sam might not have the prevailing momentum yet, he's going to show that signal that yes, he has what it takes to fight back, and that he will. It's going to be Nieto now up into the 6th spot again. Looks like Sam is going to be making some gains, and he's only 2 spots back on where he qualified all of a sudden. It looks like there's a significant difference in his approach over the last 20 laps compared to the first, and even in small samples, you begin to see attitudes shift regarding this race. Randy Fiash is on pit road, and it looks like he's going to be coming out this time only perhaps to return once again. The 55 of Fiash is going to be laying down low on the apron and gets back on the way officially now. Alan Rawell also on the track, 30 laps down, just got back up to the drivers around him here, and you can see Alan on much younger rubber doesn't have much of an issue staying at the pace of the leaders. He is 30 laps down as it stands, so significantly further behind all those in the pack. And Randy Fiash right now, as he is as well. It looks like Brad Patton is still going to be scored ahead of Alan Rawell. That will change in about 15 laps time if, of course, Alan decides to stay on the circuit. Side by side, Cody Smith and Sam Nieto. That's the move for Nieto to get up in a 5th. And that he does. Sam up to P5. Jacob Fife now looking for 6th here. Cody Smith might be in a little bit more trouble as another move is made right around the number 18. It is Jacob Fife now eyeing up what is next on the table, and that will be the number 18 of Smith if all were to stay the same. You got Don Stevenson and Ryan Farrell right now running 9th and 10th, and while of course it looks like Ryan Farrell has been able to gain substantially, Don Stevenson, he's come to a bit of a plateau. It looks like that assault to get up a little bit further up around the pack hasn't worked out. And instead, he finds himself in position at number 9, stalled here, hasn't quite been able to keep that positive momentum, and instead, he's waiting on Nick Tarbuck to maybe make that mistake. Side by side, Cody Smith and Jacob Fife, and this is the move for 6th, and you can see Fife sliding right down low, and it's a traditional pass, as traditional as they come. Jacob Fife makes the move and enters the 6th spot. Cody Smith is right there, though, might be able to make a move, but doesn't decide to. He'll stay right back. 45 laps in out of 184 here. So, quarter-way marker in this race, getting very close to the tail end of this first stint. Two-stop strategy now looking to be as clear as day, the main primary strategy for all drivers. Some, yes, have come down to pit road. Bobby Ross looks like he just did this time by, and now he's currently going to be 2 laps down. Moreover, Alan Rawell went down to pit road, but otherwise the remainder of the field has decided not to. Randy Fiash going to be 1 lap down on pace. Rest of the field still occupies the lead lap. And right now, more and more drivers will be in jeopardy of going 1 lap down if we continue under green. Why? Ethan Lane is a 4.2 seconds ahead of Michael Araya. And then from there, he's ahead of the majority of the field en masse. Cody Smith decides to come down in after 46 laps here. He's beginning what could be the call for the 3-stop strategy. Cody coming through after 46. See who else he brings down with, and it's going to be Galen Gimmin and Randy Fiash, although Fiash is going to be slow and down on the bottom more than anything else. It looks like he decides not to go down into pit road. Randy goes, but looks like once again some troubles on the outside, and that looked to be Galen Gidman as he gets back on the way here to try to settle himself down and in, missing the commitment line and now having to do it all over again. A big reset that's going to cost him even further time. Galen Gidman goes 1 lap down as a result. 12 drivers left on the lead lap as we get closer and closer to that initial pit cycle. And even still, Gidman goes in this time through. Leading the way, it's of course going to be Ethan Lane, Don Stevenson, Ryan Farrell with each other here. And it looks like Ryan able to get by Don. And quickly, there's Nick Tarbuck going down and in. So maybe 3-stop strategy back on the table. And here comes the number 4, making it down and in. And he's going to make it through pretty easily. Nobody else with. And minimal trouble now for the number 4 of Tarbuck. Now Tom Wetmore's in 4th. Coming up on 3rd place of Ross Cato. And the 2nd spot of Michael Araya. Ross Cato going to be P3 here. And maybe an opportunity to dip down as he does to pit road. He'll go with the 44 of Laraya. The 51 of Tom Wetmore as well. Side by side they will be on the way in, and it looks like maybe minor contact. Both Wetmore and Cato will get away scot-free. So 3 stoppers going to be in effect. 150 laps might be where we see that 3rd and final caution, or rather that 3rd and final pit stop. You never know here where strategy is going to play out, but it looks expected now that we're going to block this race in 50s as Ethan Lane decides to go down and in as well on this 50th lap of his run. Sam Nieto also decided to go through this time by and go just a little bit longer, 1 extra lap. That's the difference. That puts Sam Nieto out in the head, and Don Stevenson decides to go with, as does Nicholas Ward and Brian McFerrin, meaning every driver in this race has gone down a pit road. In only 3 laps, you went from only 2 of the field to everyone of the field having gone down and in at least once. Now, coming out of pit road, Ethan Lane making his way through 51 laps in out of 184. He's in 5th overall, and then he's looking to cycle back up straight to the race lead. Sam Nieto has just entered his pit stall, and so with Ethan Lane rounding turns 3 and 4, he is coming up next. Taking a look now as he passes by the packed grandstands with not a fan off their feet. Ethan Lane takes the race lead and finds himself up and ahead now. 3 seconds back is Sam Nieto overall. And it looks like there's Cody Smith now taking over Nieto in the 2nd spot. It'll be the number 18 usurping Sam in the catbird seat. So Cody Smith up to the top of the pylon. He's got himself in 2nd. Then you got Michael Araya in 3rd. How about Tom Wetmore here in 4th, who's going to continue that battle, admittedly with a little bit of a setback. He found himself within 0.5 of a second of the Ross Cato machine, of course. Now he's ahead of Ross Cato. Up next would be Michael Araya, who he's going to find himself now nearly 2 full seconds behind. Big change up when you were oh so close and now you find yourself far away again. Question becomes, what can he do here to get back up to that number 44 Sim Speed Shop Chevrolet? Because for now, while it looks like Michael Araya is getting away, that could change. He's going to be running the tires perhaps a little bit harder here, trying to make up some time to get up to, maybe not Ethan Lane, but first and foremost, you got Cody Smith right ahead, and Cody's going to have to look back now as the pressure's on, coming for that number 44. Michael Araya has been gaining consistently over the past few laps, and notably 10th of a second gain that time by. So the number 44 team now understanding the bigger picture of this race. First and foremost here, if they're going to go all the way, it's going to come down to just consistently staying in that second position. Ethan Lane right now looks like he's going to have himself a runaway victory. Of course, there's a chance that does not happen. However, it looks like right now there's no driver that can magically make up all the time that separates themselves from the 54, and so for Michael Araya, the next best thing is to go for the second position. He quickly is going to make that move across the 18th front end. And Cody Smith, just like that, going to get passed for position once more. 55 laps in out of 184. You got Tom Wetmore now making it by the lapper of Alan Rawell. And that's not going to be a move for position. Just going to get himself a little bit more track real estate. And that's going to force Ross Cato down to the lower portion of the track and almost fall out of the banking entirely. No chance for drivers to go 3 wide here at Darlington. Matter of fact, they can rarely even go double file. As you can see, we only have ourselves about a lane and a half of really workable groove, and that means these drivers are oftentimes single file even in the heat of the moment. The only place you can really go to make a safe pass will be down on the straightaway, and even then, if you have to merge up while you're going side by side, it could be disastrous. Thinking about, of course, the fact that you could be toe-to-toe with someone and then have to merge up and then make contact because there's too little room to go side by side, and you could have yourself an incident. Or maybe the fact that you can't really make anything work without getting a Darlington stripe if you go side by side, and eventually that side piece contact, you'll see your door, you'll see your quarter panel, you'll see the front end maybe wrinkle up more and more, and aerodynamic damage does that add up here in iRacing. And perhaps the only thing more important, or rather the only thing just alongside the importance of motor damage, is aerodynamic damage, because Darlington is a fast track in which drivers get up to 180 miles an hour here in these next gens, and then you have to turn all the way in at a speed of 130 miles an hour at the very slowest. So this track requires you to have some fluctuations in your speed, and cranking up the power, you need that aerodynamic ability to really go from a slower speed up high in a small distance and a short period of time. Whether or not, though, that's going to really come into play for these drivers tonight, though, I really think that is unlikely. Alan Rawell looks like he's coming down to pit road once again, and that he is. After only a 26-lap stint, it looks like Alan Rawell decided to head down in again. The reason being might be alongside his right-end damage, just getting himself back on cycle. Alan right now is going to be 17th and in the second-to-last position, so he does have a lot of time to go before he gets up to the next driver, if any, and so Alan might be sitting at down for the night, understanding a yellow flag is a very rare outcome in races like this. Allen down and in. He's going to get himself back to pit road. Made the pass around Brad Patton. Hopefully Allen sticks with us. That is still to be determined by the 69 team. Ross Cato right now going to be working that back straightaway. He's in 5th, and you got just ahead of him there, Tom Wetmore. Ross right now from 2nd to 5th on the day, down 3, and his history at these circuits, well, he's had a history of being very strong to the intermediates, consistently going for top 10s, and overall, when we talk about the Integrity OCTANE Series point system, well, it's very similar to what you saw last night when it comes down to the Ignite Series, the Octane Series, with the exact same playoff formula. So, talking about the drivers who are in a good spot right now. Yes, Don Stevenson is locked in. Additionally, Michael Araya is up 49, Ethan Lane up 47. If they finish where they do today, well, they'll be locked in. Nick Tarbuck coming in the 3rd seed tonight. He's going to find himself now 7th up in 13 points ahead of the bubble, and that bubble is a tie right now between Jacob Fife and Kyle Cooper. You got Cody Smith 3 to the south of it, then you got Nick Ward, Bobby Ross, Brian McFerrin, and Galen Gidman, all of which you need to make some major advances here. So far, it looks like Jacob Fife and Brad Patton have found themselves overall at the front of the field, albeit now Brad Patton's going to be a little bit further back, of course, because he went down to pit road. He's 18th and last. Jacob Fife will have the advantage and will be able to keep himself ahead of the bubble. Brad Patton is expected to fall right under. Cody Smith additionally having a good day, so he has a really good chance to secure a chance, of course, at going into the round of 10. Whether or not that chance is going to be actuality, depends on the next 120 or so laps here, but a promising start for that number 18 team. And the coming laps will decide, of course, what's left for Cody Smith in the championship. He currently runs in the third position. He's about 7.6 seconds back on the next driver at the front of the field. That's going to be Ethan Lane and, of course, Michael Araya. He's going to be 2.5 seconds back on the 44 as well. So position right now is going to be something that Cody Smith has. He doesn't quite have the distance to break away from the field in the same vein as Laraya or Lane, but right now he definitely is ahead of the battle between Ross Cato and Tom Wetmore. And so long as these two drivers continue to distract one another, well, it'll look pretty good for Cody Smith, and definitely not going to feel the best for these two drivers. But hey, fourth place is a valuable spot no matter who you are. So there's a reason Ross Cato is going to fight so adamantly for it. And so he'll make the pass and he'll leave Tom Wetmore again in the dust. Going to bring Ross Cato back up to fourth. Tom Wetmore is going to be sent back down to fifth. Started today in eighth, so Tom Wetmore still with a positive interval, up 3 on the day so far. Doing a pretty good job of just that. And you take a look, there's Nick Tarbuck in the 6th position. 7th place will be Sam Nieto. 8th is going to be Jacob Fife. 9th is going to be Don Stevenson. 10th, Ryan Farrell. And these are the drivers who are not in jeopardy right now of going one lap down. However, first and foremost, Kyle Cooper is definitely on lap car watch. As you can see, that number 73 right now, 27 seconds back on Ethan Lane. And here comes Ethan Lane right now on the same straightaway and getting remarkably close to that number 73. Ethan Lane is, mind you, he's doing all of this based on green flag racing lap after lap. So, unlike what we've seen in many a race before, where Ethan Lane might have a little bit of assistance from pit stops or the cycles really shuffling drivers around, we have not seen an incident on pit road, and instead this comes down to the natural pace after our first 68 laps. Unfortunately, that means Kyle Cooper is really going to suffer tonight in that bubble battle, and he's going to fall back further to a guy like Jacob Fife or Cody Smith, and this is going to see Cody Smith, of course, enter the green, but it's definitely going to see Kyle Cooper go down into the red. When it comes down to the Integrity OCTANE Series playoffs, a race like this is a no-go for a championship contender. Most of our field, yes, composed of those drivers still eligible for the title, but for Kyle Cooper, it's just unacceptable the way he's running. There's only one championship eligible driver behind him who is still on track. That's Galen Gidman, and then you have Brad Patton, who of course is not racing right now, and he finds himself all the way back 18th and last of those who registered. Side by side with a few drivers at the minefield there with Galen Gidman, who's just coming out of pit road, and it looks like he's going to get a little bit slowed up once again as the number 2 is Sam Nieto goes by. Gidman's struggles will continue. One lap down as it stands. Nick Tarbuck has gotten a little bit closer to Ross Cato as a result of all that shuffling, and you can see now Tarbuck within about a half second of this battle, which at one point seemed to be Ross Cato's lone domain, but instead, if there's someone else that can catch the number 51 of Wetmore, it could be Nick Tarbuck. In these first 70 laps, all of a sudden, another competitor has arisen. Notice one thing about the track that has definitely changed today, and something we haven't even mentioned in the last 20 or so laps. Well, as you can probably see now, the track is dark. The sun has set, and with that being said, drivers are going to face a completely different track when it comes down to condition. Most importantly, it's going to be the weather, which ever continues to shift, maybe now in the driver's favor that much more. 75 degrees Fahrenheit, so the ambient temperature almost identical. Overall, the track temperature, it's going to be 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Relative humidity coming in at 83%, so not much a change in that regard. However, at the same time, you got yourself maybe cooler track to expect in the laps coming. Winds are going to be northbound at 6 miles an hour now, and while overall the numbers have not changed all too much, you are going to see the absorption of heat eventually decrease as gone as the sun. Now you have the stadium lights to carry Darlington through the next 100 plus laps to finish off the night. Got Cody Smith here about a tenth of a second back on Sam Nieto. That's because right there, Sam able to take the pass out of turn 4, and he's going to make the move up into 6th. Nieto not doing a half bad job so far, and overall that number 2 team has performed to, of course, expectations. Trying to stay in the playoffs here after having troubles on the Monday night campaign. Now, of course, Tuesday nights, it's a chance for a championship. You cannot lose it, especially after losing that first. This is when it comes down to finding redemption racing. And Cody Smith, who's won in both the Integrity OCTANE and Ignite series, knows what it takes to get to the checkered flag. And it looks like tonight he's falling back a little bit further based on tire. Tire strategy going to be a big deal once more. And this is another example of why Cody Smith has been on a 27-lap run. Relative to the drivers around him, well, he's on a 4-lap older run. So it's not much a difference, but it is making an impact right now because for 27 laps, Sam Nieto's been on for 23. And for 23, Nick Tarbuck has been on 25. There is no other driver in the field that is on a longer than 27-lap run, save for Bobby Ross, who is currently 1 lap down. So it comes down to this. Very few drivers are deciding to go for that risky call of the undercut. It looks like going longer is a way to bring up your race and get a bit of a stronger finish out of it. So now drivers have taken that lesson and perhaps they're going to use it. Up next, very few moments until we get to that halfway marker, and then from there the second pit cycle. Expect to see drivers continue to adapt based on the knowledge we got from the first 60 plus, as we are about 30 laps in to this second stint. Nick Tarbuck, gap between he and Ross Cato, just about a quarter of a second right now. Ross Cato could be en route to a podium position here if he can just get to Tom Wetmore, which the gap between he and Wetmore is 9/10 of a second. So admittedly, it looks like he's got a good opportunity of getting it done if, of course, one driver goes just behind him. And that's going to be easier said than done when it comes down to Tom Wetmore. Always a challenging pass, and tonight, well, that has been exactly the case. Only Michael Araya and Ethan Lane have not had to deal with the 51. Wetmore has had the speed to prevail inside the podium from beginning to end in this race. So the question becomes more so now whether or not anyone can get back up to Tom Wetmore. He's on a 28-lap run now, which is still a very solid amount to have. Your leaders are now on a 28-lap stint, and it looks like Ross Cato and then on back on a give or take a lap or two, the exact same strategy. Everything very unified in these races where no cautions come out. It's all a natural procession, and that's one of the great things to see with nearly 200 laps on the table. This is one of our longest races point blank, and it gives these drivers an opportunity to reflect inside the cockpit on what the best thing is to do. Maybe it isn't immediately clear how you should go about strategy, but the numbers are usually crunched in that first cycle. Everything else, well, you just put it all into action. You take it from the paper, you put it into practice, and that's how the final 2/3 of these races usually come down. We saw it in the Ignite series when we went racing there just a week ago at Darlington. And once again, that principle will hold true today. Let's see, of course, whether or not Ethan Lane can hold true for victory, as he still currently finds himself up and ahead. It's the number 54, 80 out of 184, ahead by 6 seconds on the next best driver. And right now, another driver who might be in that 1 lap down risk category, Brian McFerrin, 12th place, 25 seconds behind. Yes, Ethan Lane did get by Kyle Cooper, so it is fair to say that that number 54 machine has a chance to get up to McFerrin and put another driver 1 under. And it might not be just 1 under. Nicholas Ward is also here. He is in 11th, and he's just about a few tenths of a second ahead of the 0-7 of Brian McFerrin here. So if we talk about it being just 1 under, that is not accurate in the slightest. However, you've got a chance now to see multiple drivers go 1 lap down, which I'm sure they don't like to see. They don't like to hear either. But at the same time, Ethan Lane has simply been that quick. Nobody else has been on his level. And now, number 4, Tarbuck, going to find himself 6th. Sam Nieto going to be in P5. And 4th, Ross Cato just ahead. Getting by the lappers is also going to play a big role in this one, and you saw what happened there with Nick Tarbuck getting by Bobby Ross. Ross is not going to cause any difficulties, of course, and the closest battle on the track still remains to be these final drivers on the lead lap. Alan Rawell looks to be just again getting out of pit road, 37 laps down. Alan is not in last, which for him, given the circumstances in his race is an accomplishment. He ended up having to lose some 20 laps based on earlier out of the cockpit complications, and it looks like luckily he has returned once more. Oh, you can see there Brian McFerrin, a very nice run out of turn 4, and maybe a chance now to dive low on Nicholas Ward, but it looks like he backs off once again and decides to think better of it. And so now, gap's going to slightly increase. Back and forth is how it's been all day long between these drivers. Haven't seen any drivers become particularly aggressive so far. Instead, you've seen them all, maybe not passive-aggressive is the way to put it, but they definitely have been conserving the way they go about this event. You really do not want to waste all of your energy going for these mid-race passes, knowing this is only just the beginning, means that in many circumstances, it is preferable to bide your time. And in the first 84 laps, that's the mentality. Bide your time. It will get much more important as the race progresses, to make those passes, to be aggressive, to be a little bit riskier. And so that's why you're seeing here Sam Nieto be so restrained in his attempt to get up to Ross Cato, although I think that restraint will eventually dissipate. We'll see, of course, if that is indeed the way these drivers decide to go about it. Riding aboard now, the number 2 Sam Nieto, and you can see here the similarities and approaches, they are evident across these two drivers, and really there's little else you can do but say that as a fact. The number 12 of Ross Cato goes through the corner almost identically to that of, well, Sam Nieto in the number 2, and there's no other way to put it besides these two drivers right now understand the way they want to go around the track, and they will continue to do just that. Maybe, yes, there is a little bit of a difference in involving your peers around you in these laps. Maybe you do have to adapt your approach just a little bit more, but it does not mean that everything is said and done based on what you see ahead of you or what you see behind you. And that's where it comes down to individuality again, and it also comes down to the weather changing. Maybe the way you were driving before the sun set is different from how you're going to go about it after. That is also something very real that these drivers have to evaluate and approach. It is not something to really take for granted on realistic simulators such as iRacing motorsport simulations. Climate matters, temperature changes, humidity changes, the wind speed, even fog, which is scheduled to come in as the night goes on. However, that will be far later in this race. Clear skies currently, although you wouldn't be able to see them regardless, then some partly cloudy skies coming in about an hour's time. And then you might have a little bit of fog coming in the midnight hours here in the virtual Darlington Raceway, but that won't concern these drivers. And of course, no chance of precipitation tonight. We did not bring out our rain tire for the drivers. So whatever they've got right now, they're going to have to deal with it here, and I figure most of which are comfortable with keeping it away from the wet. Brian McFerrin now 4/10 back on Nicholas Ward, and Ethan Lane coming up a little bit closer, 27 seconds behind your leader. That's where Brian McFerrin is, and so Ethan Lane is going to be poised to maybe put another driver one down before this cycle comes to pass. 39 laps in out of 100. And of course 20 remaining from the first pit stop onward, and 39 out of the predicted 50 in this next pit stop cycle. We're hoping to see Ethan Lane go within about 10 laps time of where we are now, and it'll be closer to the halfway point than you think. Matter of fact, we're only 2 laps away from hitting the 50-50 marker. 50% done, 50% left to go. All green, all clean so far. Randy Fiash went down to pit road, as did Alan Rawell, and as Alan makes his way out once again after 20 laps on this stint, it looks like the number 69 once again getting some additional repairs and also working on some of that service for tires and fuel. So a full pit stop and then some for the 69 of Alan Rawell, and he will get back on the way. Here comes Ross Cato now coming across the line. He's got Tom Wetmore just ahead, and so the 12 and the 51 respectively holding their own, and there's going to be a gap between them of some a car length and a half at the very most. That's about 10 hundredths of a second, and it's going to be even less so if Ross Cato can keep that draft and maintain it, working down the Boeing back straight again. Sam Nieto's there too, so before we go down a pit road, might see a 3-car gaggle for position. come back into play. Tom Wetmore still with the minor advantage. No right side scraping for Wetmore so far, save for a little nick on the front of the hood, and you can see it very slightly in those camera angles that got close up, but I do believe Tom Wetmore does have some minor damage. It looks largely cosmetic, should not have any major implications, but I think maybe Wetmore's got to keep in mind there might be a little bit more damage on that front end than he expects, and those Darlington stripes, you do not want them to add up once again, because this track, it keeps count. And if it keeps count, it means that it's going to make sure that when you hit that magic number, you're going to start to feel it. And when you feel it, you're not going to like the way your car drives. And Ross Cato right there, not going to like Sam Nieto making that move around. That he does. Sam Nieto pulling through. Ross Cato is going to be in 5th. Ethan Lane right now leads 93 laps in out of 184. Now coming to lap number 94 on the day in Darlington. 2nd place, Michael Araya is going to be there. He's 8 seconds back, so about a third of the circuit. Then you got Tom Wetmore in 3rd, Sam Nieto 4th, and Nick Tarbuck is going to be in position number 5, with 6th place being Cody Smith. 7th place now being Ross Cato in position number 8, going to Don Stevenson. You got 9th and 10th there on back in Ryan Farrell and Ross Cato. Jacob Fife now going to make his move down to pit road as well. And our first pit cycle today coming in this nighttime setting. 2nd pit stop overall, and drivers are deciding to make their moves, as we're going to give you a little bit more information about iRacing motorsport simulations. For over 16 years now, iRacing has led the sim racing frontier with online simulations of stock car racing, open wheel racing, and any discipline you can think of. From classics and antiques to contemporary motorsport, iRacing has you covered. Join 100,000 plus users today at iRacing.com with summer membership discounts in excess of 30%. Visit their website now as the summer season comes to a close and join the fun with us live on FTM using iRacing as our preferred simulator platform. We'll return after the following message from our friends at iRacing.com.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Pit road is getting busy now with 87 laps remaining. Welcome back to coverage of the South Carolina 240 as race leader Ethan Lane decides to head down to pit road. It's been all clean and green in the opening half of this race, and of course the hope is that trend will continue. Race leader up at the top of the board is going to be Ethan Lane, and it looks like now as he makes his way dropping through, he'll give Sam Nieto a chance up in front, and Sam will take the throne as Ethan relinquishes it, and so there'll be the number 2 of Nieto, then Tom Wetmore with a chance, but he decides instead to drop down to pit road. 48 lap run for Wetmore, 49 for Ethan Lane. The difference negligible. It looks like that 1 lap can be sacrificed with very little alteration to a driver's strategy. The Ethan Lane machine is now going to be getting off of pit road very soon. 99 laps in. It looks like leading to the triple digits. It's going to be a great time for the number 2, Sam Nieto, bringing us now to lap number 100. Ryan Farrell in 2nd, and it looks like he will give up that spot. P2 coming to 93 down a pit road, and now Brian McFerrin up next. He does exactly the same thing. So that leaves us now with only 2 drivers left on the track, Nieto and Nicholas Ward. Nicholas going to be 13 seconds back on your now race leader, and now you see that number 2 making his way all throughout turns 3 and 4. No dice, he'll stay out, and Nicholas Ward has a chance to make that decision next. Meanwhile, Sam Nieto going to be passed quickly by that number 44 of course, Michael Laraya. And it shows you how quick those drivers are when they make the move, ripping around the corners. Speed is huge when it comes to tire. And when you're gripping down on the session, of course, the track session state, it changes. And even as we see more wear, well, it means that much more to have new tire. You are gripping down onto the ground of this circuit, and you do so even easier through the corners, and that corner speed means everything. Sam Nieto now going to find himself to pit road, and so as he's the final driver to do just that, Ethan Lane, the number 54, will once again lead, and it looks like he will do so with an unbelievable gap over the majority of the field. However, that gap has become suddenly believable again between Michael Laraya and Lane respectively, because it's only 1.7 seconds now, and what was more than 6 seconds at the end of run, well, once again, that has shifted big, and it looks like Ethan Lane actually losing some time over this entire pit cycle. Some of that time not found in the pit lane or box, as both drivers were identical, but instead it looks like either a sloppy entry or exit, and we saw Ethan's entry seemed to be fine, so maybe not the quickest on the way out, because Ethan Lane is once again now going to be back on the up and up, trying to make gains rather than losing time to Michael Laraya on the run. It looks like pit road nearly gets them back to a dead even state. So Michael Laraya is going to find himself trailing just behind with a real chance now. Put himself back in play for the race win. Rowell goes down to the inside once again, and it looks like for Allen, he's going to immediately sacrifice himself, move out of that battle, and Brian McFerrin is coming forth with Nicholas Ward. They're both one lap down, as is Ryan Farrell. Only 8 drivers left on the lead lap, last of which, Sam Nieto. So, Sam Nieto, Don Stevenson might be the next drivers in jeopardy of going one lap down, but for the foreseeable 50 so laps, maybe that's not going to happen. If there's any other driver that's going to go one down at this rate, it does look like it's going to be Sam Nieto in that number 2, though. He's 22 seconds behind the race leader of Ethan Lane, and he is the last driver on the lead lap. So not in the best of positions right now Nieto is to maintain where he is on the lead lap, and that status can be very easily taken away from him here. Luckily, of course, for Nieto, he's had himself a pretty solid race overall. He has led some laps, and additionally, he has newer tires. So the hope, I would say, for this number 2 team is that they're going to benefit the most out of getting that young rubber, younger than anyone else is on the track, and use it. It looks like in the last few laps, they really haven't seen much difference. Actually, Sam Nieto looks to be a little bit slower than Ethan Lane is, and you saw the tires sparking there, which doesn't look to be related to the problems Nieto is happening to have. But even with new tires, I don't think that Sam Nieto is making any gains. We're not really seeing any visible gains right now. Matter of fact, I still think he's losing time, and that gamble might have not paid off for him. Perhaps he didn't take tire, which is an odd thing to say, but we're really not seeing much that's indicating that Sam Nieto has the tires to beat, despite the fact he went down a pit road last for them. Now it's going to be Nick Tarbuck with a chance to finish off the big threes, 1, 2, 3. And this is what we talk about Nick Tarbuck being a longer-term driver. Don't panic over those first 30 laps. Conquer in the next 150. Gap between he and Ross Cato is going to come down to only a quarter of a second now. And Ross is now going to have a chance to be up 2 relative to his qualifying spot, if of course he gets by the number 12 of Cato here, which does look to be very likely. His success now all comes down to whether or not he just maintains the pace he appears to have in these last few laps. Slicing and dicing through the order, Cato and Tarbuck alike have been able to make themselves top competitors today. Ross Cato with a particularly strong start. He started right behind Michael Laraya, and right beside there, Ethan Lane. So these two drivers, Cato and Tarbuck, no strangers with that experience of victory, and no strangers with being strong at a track like Darlington. So it's incredible, of course, to have the both of which up here now battling alongside each other with 76 laps to go, knowing the implications on the line. Ross Cato needs a good race. Nick Tarbuck, just a solid run would put him into the next round with little other worry about what is left to come on this campaign. Of course, the round of 15 getting off to an unsteady start. Well, Tarbuck could afford it compared to most drivers, and the ever-chaotic Atlanta Mini Super Speedway, it's a call for chaos whenever we go there. So no question that was going to play a role tonight. And of course, Darlington's own chaos, but Atlanta's just a different animal. And so Tarbuck now up 13 when it comes to that buffer. Time for him to figure things out and get by Ross Cato if he wants a serious shot at yet another podium. Ross Cato is the last thing that stands in his way, as you can see. Take a look from the back end here of that number 12. Ross has been able to play that defensive game fantastically as well, something you got to give credit to for a driver who has not been so far up in front for the majority of this campaign. Of course, we talk about the season. Yes, he's had many a top 10 finish, but there is a substantial difference between those top 10s and those top 5s. The numbers count big, and right now, Ross Cato driving like he's got the experience, which is something that he seems to have as sort of an on and off factor in these playoff situations. Ross Cato, he has been clutch before, perhaps the most clutch driver in the history of this series, save for our first ever champion, and of course Seth Noel. Now, to say that he hasn't been clutch before is a complete lie for Nick Tarbuck and company, but Ross Cato emphasized or embodied the do-or-die mentality in the most important races of a season when it came down to Martinsville in 2023. However, a wiggle up to the high side here, and it's a mistake we haven't seen much of tonight. Getting out of turn 4 loose might give Nick Tarbuck a chance, although once again he will settle down. And both drivers here still going to be lockstep. Nick Tarbuck looking low once more. Maybe a chance to dive into turn 3 with the advantage, which has been a very potent position to make up spots. So far tonight, though, it looks like those two drivers haven't quite attempted it. And so they're going to be toe-to-toe all over again. 71 laps to go as Ethan Lane came across the stripe previously. And next up on the agenda, it's going to be 70 laps left. Pit stop is expected still from lap 140 to lap 150 here. So no guarantee of exactly when that will be, but Tom Wetmore now coming up in 5th. He does have a younger tire than both drivers ahead. That's another thing to acknowledge here. Tire wear for drivers who decide to go for the significant undercut. Going for the overcut did not seem to be the most successful play, and instead, drivers have made the best of it by going for longer runs before pit road and then coming out with newer, fresher tire after. And expect that to be a very significant strategy call in the last pit stop cycle, where drivers might go for only about a 25, maybe 30 lap run. That could be the difference between victory and defeat for a driver tonight, in maybe just more ways than one. Ethan Lane looks to be pretty solid when it comes to leading, and while we said yes, the gap was as low as 1.4 seconds, well, now he's got himself a 9-second lead over the rest of the field, and that is going to be from 1st to 2nd, and then on back, because now Michael Araya is hardly in the same straightaway as the driver, that number 54. Matter of fact, no, you don't see him. Ethan Lane can enter turn 1, while Michael Araya is now just coming out of turn 4. That's how big the difference is, and Ethan Lane looks poised to win that 12th race of his season. What a campaign it has been. He has been very difficult to challenge. He has been beat, but it seldom occurs when he's got himself in a situation where he's on the lead lap and he's going under green, and there's contact there, Ross Cato, and here comes now Nick Tarbuck looking low, beating and banging, and that's going to be a heavy Darlington stripe, and that is enough for Tarbuck to enter the podium for the first time all race long. Nick Tarbuck, under regular conditions, he is in 3rd. That's the type of move you have to make if you're Nick Tarbuck. That could have been a big incident. Maybe not the biggest of wrecks, but at the same time, finding your way around in a predicament just like that, it is a huge deal. And a wonderful job there for Nick Tarbuck to just make it around and make sure he does not get phased by the incident that could have been. He's going to make it through quickly on Ross Cato, and maybe Tom Wetmore could be up next. And yes, it is confirmed here that Tom Wetmore does have some very minor front end damage, it appears. There's going to be some very small scruffing up on that front right. And while it is going to be almost negligible entirely, it could be something that it comes out with more contact or beating and banging if the Darlington stripe does continue to occur throughout this race for the 51. That's something Tom Wetmore, of course, has to avoid on his own terms, and I'm sure that's something he's going to work on here as he tries to work on Ross Cato. You do not want to ruin your race based on some pre-existing damage. We've seen it happen before where that old damage comes back to haunt the driver. Just something you cannot afford in the playoffs as well. Ross Cato still fourth, Tom Wetmore still in fifth. Battle just outside the podium now, 121 laps in at a 184. Take a ride on board right now with Tom Wetmore. No, as he's already going to take it side by side, and it looks like the run out of 4 will be just enough to hold it dead even. Side by side. 2 by 2, not quite, but it's going to be that initial 2-wide formula that gives the 51 of Wetmore a pass, and you can see him handling the steering wheel with ease. He's going to make sure minor twitches don't fall out of control, and just like that, Tom Wetmore up in a 4th, Ross Cato P5. I'll take a lap on board now with Ross Cato and see exactly what he's seeing. And certainly not making any gains right now for Ross Cato. He's headed in that backwards direction. Currently going to find himself in 5th and 4/10 back on now. The hard-charging Tom Wetmore. Lapper is going to be prevalent, but overall, it comes down to whether or not Ross Cato here, of course, can just keep on going, because he still has one more chance to reset himself and put himself in a nice spot to go all the way and still come out with a top 5 at the very minimum. Victory maybe going to be out of the cards here. Podium is still possible if drivers continue to shuffle. In a top 5, well, he's 2 seconds up on Jacob Fife here, a driver who does desperately need a good run. And the performance for Fife that puts him up at the front of the field, it will pay dividends. He finds himself in 6th, so maybe a chance he gets up there inside of the top 5 in due time. The number 36 will figure out whether or not, of course, he has what it takes. Jacob Fife going to be 6th. Sam Nieto there in 7th, 1 second back. Next driver that's due to go 1 lap down, it would be Don Stevenson right now. And you can see it's a risky game for Ethan Lane to go for those passes on lappers. I don't believe he's going to be all too aggressive when it comes to that notion. However, whether or not, of course, now he goes after that 47 aggressively, well, comes down to whether or not he needs to make time. And right now, when it comes to Michael Araya, no, he does not need to make time in the slightest. Right now, it is going to be a 10.7 second lead, and that gap is ever expanding. That's about a half circuit. So, as now Ethan Lane makes his way down the Boeing back straight, Michael Araya has just made his way into the first 2 corners on track, and it looks like that gap being such a substantial difference, it's not going to leave any cause for concern in Ethan Lane's mind. He has some 22 laps to go left in this stint. He'll come down to pit road again for the final time, and like clockwork, he'll keep on going. So, Ethan Lane finding himself your race leader. He's in first with Michael Araya, then second. You got third place, Nick Tarbuck, the big 3, 1, 2, 3. Then you got fourth place and Tom Wetmore. Fifth is going to be Ross Cato. Sixth place is going to be Jacob Fife, and Sam Nieto is there in the 7th spot. Eighth place is then going to be Don Stevenson with 9th Nicholas Ward, and 10th Ryan Farrell. He's 1 lap down as it stands. Cody Smith 1 lap down as well, who finds himself in 12th. And for NextLevelRacing.com, high quality sim racing performance products meant for dedicated sim racers who deserve nothing but the best. They're fueling the next level race to the championship here in both the Integrity Ignite and Octane Series. And now, it looks like with the number 18 of course, Cody Smith in mind here, he's one of the many competing for that title, in which a $2,000 Next Level Racing sim rig is on the line for drivers who are looking to, of course, step up and become an Integrity champion. Cody Smith, the former champion 2022, brand ambassador in this league, bringing once again that great message. Visit NextLevelRacing.com for additional information, as we're going to head for a brief promotional message from our friends at nextlevelracing.com. You're watching the South Carolina 240, and we'll continue now with 56 laps to go. "53 final laps here in Darlington. The lady in black has been rather kind to most drivers, all green and largely clean. Only one retiree so far in the form of Brad Patton, now some 106 laps down. As it stands, Ethan Lane's going to find himself 132 laps in with the advantage still at 10.7 seconds. The interval has been very consistent over the last few laps, and with such a gap, consistency is all that is needed. Matter of fact, Lane could lose about a second per lap and still hold the advantage heading into pit road, which it's quite a long time when you think about it in that perspective, but Michael Araya simply does not have what it takes right now to make those gains. Right now, sitting in a comfortable second is all that can be done. And for 184 laps that we have on the schedule for tonight, keep in mind we've already made it to 133. Tonight, one of the longest races on the schedule by virtue of that lap count. And overall, when it comes down to mileage, it is just above the tally of 240 as promoted, 243.39 on the table for drivers tonight. And mind you, when it comes down to the Integrity Ignite Series, they did about 149 laps rather than 184. Of course, the Octane Series doing it a little bit different and going for an even longer event. The Xfinity Series, the NASCAR Xfinity Series at that, only goes for a 147 lap race at this track. Of course, major differences from going at it real world or virtual, but this is a long race. And drivers, well, they'll let you know it because there has been no break for any of them. And so far for Ethan Lane, he has been piloting this car to success all night long without interruption. But it's got to get lonely even as the race winner to be, if of course he hangs on. And you got to think about that. Anyone could be the race winner to be. If Ethan Lane were to falter late, Michael Araya would be right up next. Then you have Nick Tarbuck in third or Tom Wetmore in fourth, and so on and so forth. You see the pattern continue down the ladder. Now you got Ryan Farrell, who looks like he's going to be coming down a pit road this time by as drivers round turns 3 and 4. We'll get a better look on the number 93 right about now. Take a look at the number 93 on pit road alone. He's coming in after a 34 lap stint here, so interestingly enough, this is a major undercut as it looks like Randy Fiash goes for it, and this undercut will bring Ryan Farrell down a pit road, and perhaps he's going to call it a night there. As you can see, that he does. So Ethan Lane goes right by pit road, a quick and early pit stop for the 93 of Farrell, and that will be his last of the day, as Ryan now finds himself 14th, and he's going to finish in the penultimate place if, of course, Galen Gibbon and Alan Rawell don't get back out on track. He might actually finish inside the top 15. Right now, Ryan might be due for a 17th place finish, 16th if Galen Gibbon's damage is terminal. However, it looks like right now, still going to be 14th for Ryan, and we'll see how much longer that lasts, as side by side it could be again, this time with Sam Nieto and Ross Cato. Sam going to be hunting, and Ross Cato the hunted all over again. It looks like a top 5, which looked to be a pretty sure thing earlier on. Well, that has definitely changed, and not in the favor of that number 12. Here comes Sam Nieto making a move, and it's a textbook pass right around the inside of number 12. And that's going to bring Sam Nieto up into 5th. simple, quick, traditional style pass is going to lead us now with less than 10 laps to go in this pit cycle. 46 laps remaining. Pit road's going to get busy before we hit that 30 lap to go marker, and then from there, drivers will not have to worry one bit about what's left to go. 139 laps in out of 184. Lariah, Tarbuck, and so on and so forth, all of which have maintained remarkable consistency. Overall, let's talk about the fastest lap in this race session, because for Ethan Lane, he is the only driver to get even close to a qualifying time. Ethan Lane's fastest race lap in this event, a 29.191. That is about 0.3 of a second quicker than any other driver who put down a lap in this race, and that would have been a qualifying time good for second on the grid, second only to Ethan Lane. Ross Cato coming down and in this time through after 45 laps, a little bit early, but nevertheless, good time to make it in. Not much worry, as once again, Cato going to come through. This will be his final pit stop on the night. Moreover, Sam Nieto coming up on Tom Wetmore, and Wetmore going to concede, and he does so quickly, but it looks like with a little bit of bobble there. Luckily, keeps it straight and keeps it together. Don't want to cause any additional problems as the 51 locks into pit road. That's going to be Tom Wetmore in 5th, and as the track is rather empty around them, that's because Jacob Fife also just went down and in as well. Both drivers decided to collect themselves at the same time for pit road. P5 and P6 respectively, they come down and in as, and that's due to change momentarily here. Now, Michael Arai, after 56 laps, makes it into the entry point, and that's going to leave Ethan Lane out in the head. Then you got Nick Tarbuck coming through for second, and Cody Smith there too. Now we're down to only about 6 or 7 drivers who have not occupied pit road on this cycle. 43 laps to go. 43 laps in for Ethan Lane on this stint. It is official for the 54. Based on his previous habits, he will make it the rest of the race on one final lap. One final pit stop to get him through for the rest of the day. Michael Arai to pit road, as is Nick Tarbuck as he goes in this time around. Got Sam Nieto with Tarbuck loose. He'll save it. Good for the number 4 team. The 2 of Nieto comes in. Don Stevenson, more of the same and staying out on the track. Decides not to go down pit road just yet. That's going to leave Ethan Lane in full control. And Don Stevenson is now technically in second. But you see, he's actually about a second ahead of your leader and due to go 1 lap down. Well, very interesting to see that Don Stevenson finds himself in the runner-up spot despite the fact he might go a lap down quick. Here comes now the driver, the number 47, Don Stevenson, lonely, and it's going to leave Ethan Lane even lonelier. Take a look at Ross Cato and Tom Wetmore, both of which rapidly around the 54, and that's going to leave Ethan Lane the last driver on the track, with the exception of Nicholas Ward, without going to pit road. We'll see when Ethan Lane makes it in one final time. Expectations are within the next 5 laps, Ethan Lane will make that stop. Still no official signal yet. Nicholas Ward right now going to find himself 1 lap down, but yes, he has not decided to go down to pit road, and now Jacob Fife can get right behind him and move him out of the way, albeit temporarily. Now Jacob has to do it a bit of a harder way. Down the back straight, has that better momentum, and Nicholas Ward thinks better of it, decides not to block, and concedes once more. That's what it comes down to here. If you have that old rubber, you just have to concede in some of these situations. Unfortunately, it means that a lot of these drivers here on the new tire are going to barge through, but there's so few on the old tire that it matters very little. Now, after 48 laps for Ethan Lane, he's got to come in eventually. And I would have to think this time by it is the one. He went down after a 48 lap stint last time by and a 49 lap stint previously, and to fit in with the numbers, it looks like this will be almost smack in the middle, as Ethan Lane is due to come in anytime soon, and he, Nicholas Ward, Brian McFerrin will say goodnight to pit road. It looks like Ethan Lane at long last is going to be settling himself down and in. Here comes Lane, and the Cobalt 2 Chevrolet is now entered pit road. With them is going to be Nick Nicholas Ward going by and Brian McFerrin going in. So with 38 laps to go, Ethan Lane is going to be one of the final occupiers of pit road, and he leads all but one driver on the field who is not one lap down. That's going to be Nicholas Ward, who has a chance to usurp him in that 97, and leading now is going to be Ethan Lane. Then you got second in scoring, Nicholas Ward, Michael Araya third, Cody Smith has gotten up to fourth for the time being, and Tom Wetmore is in fifth. Nick Tarbuck P6 with Ross Cato seventh, eighth is Sam Nieto, Jacob Fife in ninth, and then you got Brian McFerrin, position number 10 and the last of those inside the top 10 for now, as Ethan Lane gets passed for the race lead by the driver, the number 97, that is Nicholas Ward. Now, Lane gets back on the way. Looks like he'll have, give or take, about a second advantage over Michael Araya, and so all will stay the same in the next level race for the championship, with Lane getting passed right by the number 44. Michael Araya, for the first time in 100 laps, has the race lead, but 6-lap older tire. Now, take a look at how quickly Ethan Lane's going to make this move. Loose! Ethan Lane gonna bobble big, and so now he's got a lot of more work to do, 0.5 of a second, and maybe the cold tire not the best to work with here. The 54, first mistake all day long. 36 laps remaining here. We'd like to thank Next Level Racing once again for their continued support of the Integrity Racing League. Looks like Ethan Lane already has his sights set, and he's got himself positioned again to take that pass. Right aboard again with Ethan Lane. Take a look at what he's got. And this could be the pass for the win here in Darlington. With a tire advantage now and slicing down to the inside, Michael Araya's got to understand it's simple as this. Lane with the race lead. The 44 now going to be a car length behind, and just like that, Ethan Lane, advantageous, 150 laps in. 34 to go as they cross the stripe, this time by. And so we'll bring you your final messages from our friends at Next Level Racing here and now. iRacing and Simulation Racing's leading hardware provider. Visit nextlevelracing.com for additional information. Keeping sim racers covered since 2009. We'll be back after our final messages from nextlevelracing.com. The home stretch is going to see Tom Wetmore falter. He's loose right now, and he's got more contact in the wall. Wetmore, that right side damage, it's coming knocking, and that's going to bring Ross Cato up in a fourth. We mentioned that calendar. Darlington keeps score, and it looks like Darlington might win tonight against Wetmore. Tom's going to end up battered and bruised on that right side that much further. 30 laps to go, and that is a prime example of exactly why this track gets even trickier the more you go back and forth, hitting further and further. Very challenging here for Tom Wetmore to keep on going. Progression is going to be a problem now, but it looks like he's got enough track position where maybe Sam Nieto is not a direct threat, but damage an older tire, it's going to be a bad thing now. Whether or not, of course, 29 laps to go, there's enough time to get up there to Tom Wetmore, that remains to be seen. But Tom not going to do himself any favors here, of course, as he falls behind Ross Cato and gives him a little bit more of a chance. However, Tom has younger tire than Cato here, and so long as he didn't really scrape up the tire, maybe a chance he'll go back out there and battle Ross once more. Nicholas Ward, a little bit of a wiggle there, but so minor doesn't mean all too much. 157 laps in so far in the South Carolina 240. This has been, by all accounts, one of the most impressive displays of green flag racing consecutively. And I know that field size means a lot when it comes to saying it's an impressive display. Tonight, only 18 drivers. However, this is a race that really comes down to attrition. Oftentimes, I think that lap number means more than the mileage. I mean, yesterday, we had ourselves a race which went for 266 miles. It was a long one. It was only 100 laps, and it went entirely under green for the first 92. Now, that is, of course, a very intense race at Talladega. So, to say that Darlington is more intense by itself, it's not necessarily true. I think most drivers would tend to disagree, but 184 laps, back and forth, all throughout, with no break. If it sounds like it's more, oftentimes to a driver, it will feel more. It's as simple as that. Something of that nature, of course, doesn't seem to be really scientific. There's no real numbers to back it up, but that feeling is something that, you know, I'm sure most of these drivers understand. It's like going to Martinsville and doing 175 laps, which, speaking of Martinsville, let's talk about the schedule that's coming up next in the Integrity OCTANE Series. That's a track that you gotta keep your eyes peeled for, not only in the OCTANE Series, but in the Ignite Series as well. And first and foremost, when we talk about Martinsville, it is in the round of 10. We're going to go there for 250 laps, so if you think 175 of that short track means nothing, well, we're going to up the ante and bring you 250 laps, or only 125 miles from Martinsville. Now, that on paper might be a shorter race, but when you think about how contact heavy that race was last year with the Gen 4 bodies as well, it's going to mean chaos. Now, a good group of drivers we have, so oftentimes we're able to avoid any major trouble, but that still could be a particularly rough race. If a few drivers get into each other's heads, tempers begin to flare, you're definitely going to see drivers getting a little bit antsier, maybe more than you'd like to see it, because with 23 laps to go now, we're getting to the home stretch in Darlington is what has been a very calm event, and next week with 55 laps of Roval racing up next, we are really not at all expecting to see the yellow flag drop even once. So it would be 2 consecutive races of caution-free racing to end the round of 15 and then bring us up next to what will be our first race in the round of 10 at the Auto Club Speedway for a fairly traditional 200-mile length. 23 laps to go, coming to 22 this time by. Let's crank it up with iRacing's premier camera providers at trackcams22.com. For additional information, visit facebook.com/trackcams about iRacing's best camera provider for broadcast or even personal replays. The best broadcasters choose the best cameras for a reason. So let's get loud and proud here in Darlington with 22 laps to go here in the South Carolina 240. Ethan Lane still holds full control. The gap between he and second place Michael Raya, 8.5 seconds. You might have seen he got a little bit more contact with the right side of his number 54, but that damage shouldn't mean all too much with the amount of gap he has now relative to the rest of the field here. Sam Nieto going to be coming up on Ross Cato once again. This battle is going to continue once more. Big question becomes, maybe now, what can Ross Cato do to hang on for a top 5? Because if he lets go with Sam Nieto, he might also let go to Tom Wetmore, who is still there approaching. The question becomes, of course, whether or not that's going to change. Tom Wetmore here still watching aboard as Sam Nieto looks low, and the number 2 is going to make it easily, lunging through 3 and 4 with a chance to go at least side by side through the next 2 corners. But it looks like at the very most, which is what comes of it, Sam Nieto gets the pass and moves Ross Cato now into 5th. Tom Wetmore is going to be there in P6, and now looking ahead, he's got maybe another target that he can go for. But despite the fact that Wetmore does have that right side damage, maybe now Ross Cato is beginning to fade back as well, and the difference between instantaneously messing your stuff up and going over it the long term, maybe at the same time, there's little in the same. Of course, the differences are going to be vast to start, but right now for Tom Wetmore, if Ross Cato continues to remain vulnerable, there's an opportunity, and a clear one, that he can maybe make something happen here that we haven't even thought of occurring beforehand. However, Ross Cato looks to be closer now to the pace of Nieto than he is to that of Tom Wetmore, and that almost shoots himself in the foot. That number 12 doesn't have to worry, but for Tom Wetmore, well, if he wants any chance, he'll have to up the pace, which is very tricky now with that aerodynamic hindrance. Wetmore 7/10 back on Ross Cato. Cato 4/10 behind on Sam Nieto. So I think the difference here is clear, and Ross Cato, yes, is more so aligned with the drivers ahead of him than those behind. Only 7 drivers left on the lead lap, the last of which is Jacob Fife, and it looks like he might be in jeopardy of going 1 under if, of course, this race progresses in the same direction we've seen it so far. But that would also include a pit stop, which is not going to be seen for the rest of the night, so I don't think Ethan Lane is going to have a real chance at getting up to Jacob Fife. However, up next, it would be the driver of the number 51 in Tom Wetmore. And it looks like, of course, Wetmore in 6th, 7th Jacob Fife, Ross Cato in 5th, all of which 20-plus seconds behind Ethan Lane, who has been almost unstoppable. 10 laps remaining. This time around, 175 laps ran consecutively under green. Then from there, you're going to see the 11th place, of course, spot is going to be held by Cody Smith. 2 laps down is going to be Kyle Cooper in 12th, and then 3 down is 13th and Bobby Ross. These lappers are still on the track, and they have not quit. Most important thing for these drivers is that they keep things going even if they are losing points overall. Bobby Ross is a prime example of a driver who has made it into the playoff picture and definitely needs a turnaround race. He finds himself 11 under the bubble, and he came in 13th in points, and I don't think he's really going to see much again. He might be able to get an advantage over Galen Gidman or Brad Patton, but both drivers found themselves under coming in. Well, Brad Patton now going to find himself severely below, and Patton was on the bubble beforehand, and with a little bit of a buffer, well, it's not going to be enough now. A dead last finish will do that to you. He'll be in the red, and Galen Gidman will be in a must-win situation, and it's going to come down to whether or not Galen can get it done next week in the Roval. If he's not enough as a road course racer, it's going to be that number 9 out of the playoffs, just like that. It's going to be pretty tricky. Whether or not, of course, it happens, well, that remains to be seen, but Galen Gidman definitely needs to make some more out of this race. Of course, he's 17th, and he's been on pit road for 89 laps. Alan Rawell, 85 laps on pit road, which means that Ryan Farrell, despite disconnecting 44 laps ago and fully leaving the session, will finish in 15th. So that's going to be his only saving grace. He's not going to finish dead last. He's not even going to finish necessarily near it. And with that being said, it looks like a better race on paper than it was in practice. Cody Smith right now up there with Brian McFerrin. This is the battle for 10th. Let's see what Cody can do. Of course, trying to make up one extra spot here, and a spot like this when he's already a lap down is meaningful, especially meaningful. Ethan Lane with 6 laps to go holds forward as your race leader. He's gotten through now almost a full lap ahead of the majority of the field, and then you got him have 10-second lead over Michael Araya, 15 over Nick Tarbuck. Once again here in Darlington over a full green flag event. Well, as it stands, Big 3 are 1, 2, 3. The big problem, of course, is whether or not the field can come back on those big 3 who almost look to be poised to fight in the final 5 spots for the championship. They've been wonderful this season so far, but things could change, of course, as the season progresses. But with a 1, 2, 3 finish lined up, Ethan Lane will be locked in to the next round. Michael Araya will be locked in to the next round. Nick Tarbuck will find himself locked in pending participation next week to the next round. 3 drivers will punch their ticket into the round of 10 tonight, and they're all at the front of the standings as they've been throughout this entire season. The Big 3 is back in effect tonight, and Ethan Lane is looking to make it his 12th victory of the season and continue what has been pure dominance in this campaign. And we said of it of Seth Noel last season in 2023 when he was able to come through with 5 victories before the championship concluded. Lane has doubled that, and Michael Araya has exceeded that number 2, and Nick Tarbuck is coming in hot on that number in his own right. The definition of dominance has changed in this series, and it looks like the key has been turned over to 3 men with the pace week after week to dominate the field no matter where we go and no matter when. It comes down to whether or not these 3 can win or if nobody can win. It's as simple as that. And the ringleader, so to speak, of this Big 3 enterprise, well, he's up and ahead, and he's going to get the job done tonight with only 1 more lap ahead of us. Clean and green through 184 consecutive laps tonight. 1 lap to go for Ethan Lane as he looks to lock himself into the next round, the round of 10. 54 machine is channeling that energy of Jimmy Johnson, the, of course, 4-time champion consecutively, which ended up being championship from 2006 to 2010, a 5-time champ at that with no breaks. Tonight, Ethan Lane, of course, still chasing after his first, but a 12th win seems rather nice as a Darlington winner. Make it a dozen for Ethan Lane, coming across the start-finish line and taming the track too tough. Darlington winner, Lane advances to the round of 10. Second place, Michael Araya, based on points, additionally will advance, and Nick Tarbuck, so long as he shows up next week, 3rd place, advances as well. Sam Nieto P4, Ross Cato in 5th tonight. Top 5 coming through separate by 24 seconds. Ross Cato, the last of which he was able to hold on against Tom Wetmore with 7th place Jacob Fife, 8th Don Stevenson, 9th Nicholas Ward, 10th and Cody Smith, 11th place Brian McFerrin and Kyle Cooper 12th with Bobby Ross 13th, Randy Fiash 14th, and Ryan Farrell 15th. 16th is Alan Rawell, 17th Galen Gidman, and 18th and last Brad Patton. Now time to see that number 54 burn down the house at the start-finish line. And Ethan Lane now going to continue his celebration here, it looks like, and to take it around the circuit, a reverse loop, a Polish victory lap. Win number 12. What a season it's been so far. And riding high on the success that we've seen throughout this entire campaign, little reason to believe that Ethan Lane will falter from this point onward. The checkered flag flies again in his favor. 12th win on the season of 25 races. And he's almost got himself that perfect 50% win rate, which compared to the rest of the field, which is more than it's not, 15 plus drivers, it's an unbelievable number to keep on holding in what's been a competitive series week in, week out, all of 2024. Let's get a word now with your race winner, Ethan Lane. He's going to be standing by with us in the FTN broadcast booth. He's going to come to park his number 54, and we'll get a word from your race winner who ran away tonight and wins here in Darlington. We'll speak, of course, to your top driver first, then get second and third immediately thereafter. And here we got it, the number 54 of Ethan Lane, standing by as a 12-time race winner. Caution-free, 184 laps. Tonight was a long, long haul, and at Darlington, this one must have felt even longer. But it looks like tonight you win from the lady in black, Ethan, and you did so with ease.
Yeah, no, that was a long race. Darlington's definitely a mental game and all about saving tires and everything, just keeping it off the wall and not making mistakes. But yeah, we're definitely sore after that one. Yeah, it was fun though.
And it looks like everything working out just right from qualifying onward. You had the pace to put several tenths up on the rest of the field in that one, of course, hot lap you had, which put you up to the board in the first place. First lap did all the magic there, and it looks like you kept that pace all race long. What in particular you think was the place in the circuit where you found the most time and had the most sort of advantage over all those around you?
Honestly, I don't know. This track's kind of one groove now. You run the top through 1 and 2 and bring it down off 2, and then run the bottom through 3 and 4 to save tire. I don't know. I felt like I wasn't driving it in as deep as everyone else, so that kind of helped. I was able to get back to the gas quicker, kind of manage the right front from wearing too much and trying to drive off the right rear like I normally try to do here. And then just being able to like get it off the corner without spinning the rear wheels and keeping the thing going straight. I think we just had a lot more grip than everyone, and it worked out in our favor.
And everything working out just right there. Strategy seemed to be pretty simple on that front as well. 10-second gap to win, and this will put you in punching your ticket to the round of 10. Now, Charlotte Roval's up next, and last time we went road course racing, we know how it went for you up in front and successful at the Glen, but the road course, of course, in Charlotte is a different animal. How do you feel about your chances up next?
I don't know. The Roval kind of has the grip level that Sonoma did. So he might be good for 5 laps, and then we're probably going to fall off, but we'll find out. The Roval is definitely interesting racing-wise because there's not too many passing zones. I think you have one going into the chicane on the front stretch and on the back stretch, and then just one going to turn 1, and that's kind of it. So we'll see how it goes next week.
And we'll see what's up next to come, but already getting out of the round of 15 and moving to what's next. Ethan Lane, any final shout-outs or comments you'd like to get after this victory?
Yeah, no, so 7 years ago, my dad passed away yesterday, so this one's definitely for him. Darlington's one of those racetracks where we always went to. We used to go for my birthday when it was held in March, and then for his birthday when it was held in May. Been there several times. It's basically my home away from home. One of my favorite racetracks, if not my favorite racetrack to just drive or even race at. So this one's for him. For everyone putting on the league over in Integrity. Wish more people come out. I know that since they're not in the playoffs or whatever, it's hard to bring yourself out and race, but it's definitely fun when you can go green for 184 laps at Darlington, which is one of the hardest racetracks on the service. And also you've put on these broadcasts every week.
And a wonderful job tonight, Ethan, getting it through here in Darlington and finding such success for the 12th time this season. Another victory here, Ethan. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Playing on the move, Michael Araya going to be in second. The big 3 coming in, and number 44 right up next. And tonight, well, you found yourself away from almost everyone else and came away with a 7-second advantage for the runner-up spot, Michael. Good point stay, and it does as well. Lock you in for that round of 10. So there's a big positive coming out of this one in Darlington.
Yeah, certainly a solid points night tonight. But man, nobody had anything for Ethan here. He just put a whooping on the whole field. So, um, I mean, I wanted to make it obviously more competitive tonight and give you a little bit more entertainment for calling the race. But he just had such a good long run pace that it was really hard to keep up. I was trying some different strategy through the middle of the race, maybe just seeing what an undercut would do, and it kind of worked. We got to a point where our tires were equal out, but um, he got such a big lead on me after the first run that it was just so hard to recover. So from that point on, it was really just about running my own race and not throwing away a solid second place finish.
And all about just keeping up with the points that were, of course, available on the table tonight. Strategy didn't seem to be anything too out of the ordinary, but one thing's for certain, no breaks for 184 laps. Tonight was a long haul. What did it take for you to manage that?
Yeah, it certainly takes a lot of focus. I definitely feel more worn out after this race than others, that's for sure. Especially when the the thing goes green the whole time. I mean, you have no time for any breaks, and so definitely feeling it now after the race is done. But um, really just making sure that you're not over driving parts of the corner, especially the entry. If you're doing that, you're just killing your right front, and then just a bigger chance that you're going to smack the wall. So really, kind of just managing your entry, getting into a good rhythm, and then um, the nice thing about this setup was I found through 1 and 2, uh, you could kind of drive off the right rear a little bit and get the car to pivot a bit. But 3 and 4 was all about hooking that bottom line where the banking would kind of transition with the dotted white lines there. You could get your left side tires right on that seam and kind of wrap that corner, and it helped turn the car, and you'd save your tires that way. So really, again, just hitting your marks is really important tonight.
Those marks were hit over the course of 184 laps, where tires might have just been the difference to keep pace, and I'm sure that's going to be the same with what's up next. The Charlotte Roval, 55 laps there. That is due to be an intense race. It might not matter too much for your point scenario, but how do you feel about going out there and trying to find one spot more?
I certainly feel like I have a decent shot. The Roval is certainly an interesting course. I mean, there's aspects of it that are definitely more technical, which I think suits me better. After the success that I had at Sonoma early in the year, I'm hoping that some of the same principles that I was able to find at Sonoma can carry over at the Roval. But then, of course, you have some very fast sections too, which I feel like definitely would suit somebody like Ethan a little bit more. Um, so we'll have to see. I mean, if it feels good though, just to be locked in at this point and getting into the next round. So next week is just going to be another one of those tests of making sure that you're executing and trying to treat it like a championship race basically. So definitely want to keep staying on your A game with this.
And now, little reason to worry about what's next to come for the Roval, but of course, a lot of opportunities to keep on improving. Michael Arias, second here from Darlington. Any last messages you'd like to give out?
Of course, going to give a shout out to Sim Speed Shop, my teammate Sam Nieto, yourself, David, for these broadcasts each week, and of course the admins of IRL.
There we go. Michael Arias, second on the day here in the South Carolina 240. Thank you again for your time.
All right, thank you.
And with Lariah on the move, last of which is going to be Nick Tarbuck in the number 4, who comes through for a podium again. And tonight, it was a very slow start. We'll get to that in just a moment. Tarbuck comes again to finish off the Big Three's podium, 5th to 3rd. And tonight, there was a lot more in practice than what we saw on paper for you here. It was an up and down day, but it ended up on the higher side to finish it off.
Yeah, man, what's up? I'm glad to keep my third step on the podium warm again. It's my usual spot here, it seems like. Yeah, it's pretty rough at the start there. I tried to run the car a bit differently than I had all practice and warm up. I tried to do a few things differently, and it was just not working out for me. I wasn't quite good enough to do it the way I wanted to. So then, yeah, the next run I spent gaining some ground back, trying to overdrive it the opposite way instead of trying to get loose. I was trying to make it a little tighter, I guess, to see what happened. And then the final run, I was able to, strike a good balance and was able to get up into third place there. But yeah, there was absolutely no catching Ethan or Mike tonight. I mean, I could, I guess, keep pace with Lariah, but I was so far back that it didn't even really matter. They're just, class the field. Tried to mimic what they were doing, just couldn't get the car to rotate as much, I guess, with the trail braking. I'm not sure what I was doing wrong, but, third place is third place.
And first and foremost, we saw in the first 30, 40, 50 laps, that first stint in as its entirety, you weren't up there inside the top 5 to start, but definitely made a turnaround from the first pit stop onward. Any specific changes you might have implemented to get that to work out?
Yeah, I was really trying the first run to just get the car pretty loose, I guess. I was watching some practice laps of Ethan, just trying to kind of mimic what he was doing for his fast laps, and I obviously could not make it work. At least I was not doing the same thing he was. So when I trail braked, I was overdriving it like crazy and getting the rears way too hot and burning them up. So I changed that, and I was able to run what I was running in practice, which I knew was fast. It was fast enough to run top 5, but it was not going to be anywhere near fast enough to win. So I had to try something that first run to see if I could make it work, and I didn't. So then I reverted back and was able to finally start making up spots, like you said, after the first pit stop, once I realized that I might as well just go back and do what I know how to do.
Well, it looks like sticking to the basics there helped you out and going dividends for what was a very solid race that I believe locks you in to the round of 10. So we got the Roval up next, which we've been to before in this series, and then we've got Auto Club. Which of those two races maybe you perhaps prioritizing getting an extra buffer from next week, or are your sights set on that second round?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the Roval, I would like to say I could get a pretty good amount of points in. I like road courses in these cars, surprisingly. It's just whether or not I can hit on all cylinders, keeping the tires clean. Auto Club is going to be it's going to be something crazy, I think, just with how fast we're going to be going there. So I think I'll get through this next round as well, if I can keep myself clean and not get caught up in incidents and wreck. So at this point, I'm just taking it race by race, really. Just going to try and do the best I can each week and see what happens, and probably come third a whole bunch more, hopefully.
Maybe some more podiums on the way. Nick Tarbuck, P3 here from Darlington. Any last shout-outs you'd like to give?
Yeah, man. Well, I want to thank you, as always, for putting on a good show. Thanks to the admins for putting on a good race. Congrats to Ethan on the win there and Mike on the second place. Thanks to everybody who watched, mom, dad, the wife. Boys back home, Discord work guys, everybody that tunes in. And yeah, we'll see y'all next week.
Third place, number 4 machine, Nick Tarbuck holds fort for another podium spot tonight. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
And so, very familiar faces line up on the top 3 today. Nick Tarbuck third, Michael Araya second, and 10 seconds ahead for win number 12, Ethan Lane wins from Darlington. The South Carolina 240 goes in Lane's favor, and a 12th victory on a season that has already been littered with victories. He might have a chance at 13 up next at the Charlotte Roval. That's, of course, if he gets there, and of course, that's, of course, indeed, if the field doesn't have anything for him. Same time, same place, Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like to join as a driver, well, scan the QR code on your screen, and you can join the Broadcast League directory in the FTN Broadcasting Discord server if you would like to join the fun. From the virtual Darlington Raceway, of course, our host, racing tonight in the South Carolina 240. This has been exclusive coverage of the Integrity OCTANE Series, live on FTN Broadcasting for all 30 races this year. I've been David Kreutz, commentating and producing all of tonight's action, and if you enjoyed, leave a like on the stream and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching our coverage here from the virtual Darlington, South Carolina. You've been tuned in to the South Carolina 240. We hope you have a fantastic night.